pure facts. The increases, the significant increases occurred under your first mandate. Under the second mandate, you did attempt to do the right thing by capping it at 2%. Queen's University wants to undo that, Minister. And I'm asking you, are you going to let them? And your frightening answer was, it's a consideration. I want the students of Ontario to hear that. How long before the other universities, McMaster, University of Toronto, follow along? Do you want an Ivy League system as in the United States, where the rich go to the expensive universities and the rest of our children go to the state universities? Is that what you want? Is that what you're going to let him do to our post-secondary education? I'm not finished. It must be very tempting to the Finance Minister. Tuition deregulation would be an opportunity for him to further cut operating grants to universities to solve the deficit problems that your careless tax policies have caused.
So what we decided to do in this election was to really start our preparatory work 2 years before the election even happened. We started doing a lot of outreach to the opposition parties to try to shape their political message so that the opposition parties had policies where they were actually running on tuition fees and accessibility as a main plank in their campaigns. What we needed to do was make education a hot button issue.
I remember when my dad was excited because Ernie Eves cut taxes in Ontario. But my dad only got a few $100s back from his tax cut, and my university tuition fees went up by over $5,000. This time, I get to vote. And I'm going to vote for a candidate who puts education before tax cuts.
A message from the Canadian Federation of Students. For more information, visit www.voteeducation.ca.
Individual students don't organize on their own. Generally speaking, it doesn't happen. It happens because there are organizations that allow people to be attracted to a movement. And the Canadian Federation of Students does that. And that's how you begin to influence governments. You influence it through movements and not through individual actions. And while some people dismiss petitions, the fact that petitions are presented in the legislature and people see that while they're watching the parliamentary channel, we believe has an effect.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to present this petition signed by 2,300 Wilfrid Laurier graduate students and the Canadian Federation of Students.
Mr. Speaker, I have a petition from the Canadian Federation of Students.
And as I said earlier, this petition is signed by over 100 young people from communities from Barry's Bay, Killaloe, Round Lake Centre, and Palmer Rapids.
I've got thousands of names from petitioners.
From the Lakehead University Student Union, Local 32, Canadian Federation of Students. Whereas average tuition fees in Ontario are the second highest in Canada, and whereas average undergraduate tuition fees in Ontario have more than doubled in the past 10 years, and whereas tuition fees for deregulated programs have, in certain cases, doubled and tripled, and whereas Statistics Canada has documented a link between increasing tuition fees and diminishing access to post-secondary education, And whereas 4 other provincial governments have taken a leadership role by freezing and reducing tuition fees,
we the undersigned.
We the undersigned.
We, the undersigned,
we the undersigned
We, the undersigned, petition the Legislative Assembly of Ontario to
Freeze tuition fees for all programs at their current levels.
freeze tuition fees for all students and programs at their current levels.
freeze tuition fees for all programs at their current levels,
freeze tuition fees for all programs at their current levels,
freeze tuition fees for all programs at their current levels.
Mr. Speaker, this is of a concern of hundreds and hundreds of students attending Lakehead University in Thunder Bay. I affix my signature in full agreement with their concern.
Since this is my alma mater, I'm pleased to sign it.
We have hundreds and hundreds of names on these petitions, and I'm happy to add my name to the petition.
And I affix my signature to it.
I support this petition, Speaker, and sign it.
And I'm very pleased to present this petition on their behalf.
And since I agree with it wholeheartedly, I'm delighted to put my signature on this petition. And I know that other members would like to do it as well.
I'm involved, along with representatives of the Canadian Federation of Students, in an exercise called the Ontario Alternative Budget. And in our most recent Ontario Alternative Budget, we proposed a package of expenditure renewal, expenditure reinvestment, and revenue enhancement measures that would have enabled us to increase funding for colleges and universities by over $2 billion a year over a 2-year period and still balance the budget without increasing taxes dramatically, by simply closing major loopholes in the tax system and rolling back some of the major corporate tax rate cuts that have been introduced by the Harris government, rate cuts that have been left in place by the McGuinty government.
As public funding rapidly declined for colleges and universities, tuition fees made up, but tuition fees will never make up the shortfall unless you're charging $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 a year in tuition. They will never achieve those kinds of economies of scale as you will from everybody contributes a little bit to education in the province or in Canada, and that is the missing variable. That's the variable that the Federation, of course, has always focused on, is the public funding question.